few figures in history command as much reverence, devotion, and cultural authority as Jesus Christ. For to millennia, Jesus has stood as a symbol of faith, morality, sacrifice, and redemption. Yet, in modern America, his image and teachings are often repurposed for goals far removed from the Sermon on the Mount, instead of guiding souls. Jesus has been strategically deployed to mobilize voters, sell products, consolidate political power, and even legitimize economic systems that bear little resemblance to his original teachings. This phenomenon, the entanglement of Christ with the machinery of state and market, can be understood as the gospel of politics. It is a gospel not of divine grace, but of pragmatic manipulation, in which Jesus is commodified and reframed to serve electoral victories and profit margins. This essay critically examines the political and economic exploitation of Jesus in America, its historical roots, its development in the 20th century, its expression in contemporary culture, and the consequences for democracy, religion, and civic life. The historical roots of faith and power from the nation's founding. Christianity and politics in America were deeply intertwined. Though the US Constitution enshrined the separation of church and state, in practice, biblical language shaped political rhetoric and national identity. The Puritan settlers viewed America as a new Israel, chosen by God to be a city upon a hill. Later, revolutionary leaders invoked divine providence to legitimize independence from Britain. Even in the earliest debate, Jesus was implicitly invoked. His name appeared less as a religious figure of worship and more as a political resource, a symbol of morality, order, and legitimacy. Across the 19th century, abolitionists quoted Jesus to condemn slavery, while defenders of slavery did the same to justify it. Each side sought to wrap its politics in the authority of Christ. This pattern invoking Jesus not for his teachings, but for political credibility, set the stage for the full-blown exaltation that would follow in the 20th century. The rise of the religious right of the late 20th century marked the birth of a new political movement. The religious right. Evangelical leaders such as Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, and James Dobson built powerful coalitions that fused conservative politics with religious identity. Their central strategy was simple: to frame political choices as spiritual choices. Jesus became a campaign surrogate. Slogans like, "What would Jesus do?" were transformed from moral reflection into political litmus tests. To vote for a Republican candidate was to vote with Jesus. To vote for a Democrat was to vote against him. Political strategists recognized the immense mobilizing power of this approach. The image of Jesus, gentle, authoritative, and divine, was rebranded into a partisan weapon. Campaign rallies included prayers, churches became polling mobilization centers, and candidates presented themselves as defenders of Christian America. Through this alignment, Jesus was no longer just a religious figure. He became a brand ambassador for conservative politics, the economic dimensions of exploiting Jesus while politics harnessed Jesus to capture votes. Capitalism commodified him to capture dollars. The so-called Christian marketplace exploded in the late 20th century, producing books, music, apparel, and media all branded with Jesus. Stores sold t-shirts declaring "Jesus is my homeboy," coffee mugs stamped with crosses, and entire publishing industries churned out Christian bestsellers with political undertones. Televangelists, blending faith with entertainment, amassed empires by promising prosperity to believers and aligning their messages with conservative values. Even Wall Street profited from this trend. Christian investment funds marketed portfolios that screamed for biblical values, often aligning their criteria with partisan politics. The sacred and the secular blurred into a seamless economy of belief, where to consume was to proclaim. Faith in this business of belief, Jesus became less a savior of souls than a logo and other asset, to be Manida, Jesus on the campaign trail. Perhaps nowhere is the exploitation more visible than in campaign rhetoric. Candidates routinely invoke Jesus to signal moral authority and authenticity. During debates, references to Christian values substitute for detailed policy proposals. Campaign ads feature families praying around the dinner table, subtly implying that a vote for the candidate is a vote for Jesus himself. Even legislative battles are framed as spiritual wars, with politicians claiming to defend the faith against secular enemies. This transformation effectively chains Jesus to the ballot box. His name is evoked not as a call to compassion, mercy, or peace, but as a tool to win elections. Jesus is conscripted as an unregistered campaign surrogate, pressed into service without consent. The digital gospel. Jesus in the age of social media. The rise of digital media has only amplified the commodification of Jesus. Hashtags such as #JesusSaves or #ChristianVote trend around election season, while memes present Jesus endorsing specific policies. Politicians livestream prayers, influencers sell faith-based merchandise on Instagram, and YouTube channels monetize religious commentary. Apps and platforms even gamified belief. One can download Bible study tools that double as political propaganda, receive push notifications framing elections as spiritual battles, or subscribe to Patreon accounts where pastors sell exclusive prophetic insight on current events. In this ecosystem, Jesus is content. His image is repackaged for clicks, likes, and ad revenue, each digital share another form of currency in the gospel of politics. Consequences and division, cynicism, and moral erosion. The consequences of exploiting Jesus for politics and profit are profound. Division. Jesus becomes a wedge rather than a bridge. Instead of uniting people around love and justice, his name divides communities along partisan lines. Cynicism. Many grow disillusioned, seeing religion not as sincere faith but as political theater. This erodes both democracy and authentic spirituality. Moral erosion. The teachings of Jesus, compassion for the poor, love for enemies, humility, overshadowed by the instrumental use of his name to justify war, inequality, or exclusion. Thus, the exhortation of Jesus does not merely distort politics. It corrupts the moral fabric of both faith and democracy. Counter-movements and resistance. Not all Christians accept the gospel of politics. Progressive faith leaders, interfaith coalitions, and grassroots activists resist the partisan hijacking of Jesus. They emphasize his radical message of justice, siding with the marginalized, challenging the rich, and rejecting the worship of wealth. Movements like the Poor People's Campaign or Red Letter. Christians attempt to reclaim Jesus from political exploitation, urging Americans to hear his words afresh. Blessed are the peacemakers. Love your neighbor as yourself. Their message is clear. Jesus belongs neither to the left nor the right, but to a higher moral calling. Breaking the chains. If Jesus has been bound in the chains of politics and profit, how might those chains be broken? The answer lies in cultural humility and institutional reform. Churches must resist the temptation to become political campaign officers. Politicians must refrain from reducing sacred figures into partisan mascots. And citizens must cultivate a discerning skepticism, asking whether invocations of Jesus align with his teachings or simply with electoral strategy. Breaking the chains requires returning Jesus to his radical message: love, justice, mercy, and sacrifice. Only then can the integrity of both religion and democracy be restored. The story of Jesus in America is not merely one of faith, but of exploitation. Across centuries, his name has been conscripted for wars, elections, and profits. In the 20th and 21st centuries, this exploitation reached new heights. Jesus became a partisan brand, a consumer product, and a campaign slogan. The gospel of politics reveals more about America than about Christ. It exposes the willingness of leaders to manipulate faith for gain and the eagerness of markets to commodify belief. Yet it also points to the possibility of resistance, a return to the unchained Jesus, the prophet of compassion who rejected wealth and power. In the end, the task for America is not to put Jesus on the ballot or on the dollar bill, but to put his teachings back into practice. For only then can the nation escape the trap of political idolatry and rediscover the true gospel, one not of politics, but of love,